Hi, so my boyfriend and I just finished watching the entirety of the Twilight Saga over the course of 2 weekends. I know you're extremely jealous, and before you ask, yes, he did. For the past 12 hours since we finished Breaking Dawn Part 2, he has just been bringing up the occasional plot hole that he notices within the last two films. Between you and I, the problem with the Twilight Saga is not the first three films. If you don't like them, you just don't get it. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you.
Hello?
He and I have determined that the problem is the last two films because the last two films just have a lot of really weird shit in them and awful writing, even though they were literally produced by the author herself. I know what you're gonna say. And yeah, I agree, the imprinting is bad. One of the things that he brought up to me prompted a train of thought that I believe will change the relationships between vampires and humans forever. My boyfriend brought up the part in the Breaking Dawn Part 2 fight scene / not really a fight scene where Arrow makes a comment to everybody where he is just like, "Oh, my dear brothers, our secrecy is more important than ever. Humans are beginning to develop technologies that could even destroy our kind." And my boyfriend was like, "Isn't that kind of a weird thing? I mean, what the hell kind of a technology could destroy a vampire?" And I was like, nukes, any kind of bomb, really, in good old neighborhood flamethrower, even. If the vamps are as flammable as they seem to be in these movies, then pretty much any kind of spark, including just the static spark that I've been having recently because of the winter jacket and my socks on slippers on carpet whole deal that's been happening. Even I could theoretically pose a mortal threat to vampire kind. This got me thinking, and I was like, could there be a way for us to someday coexist? I was just sitting there eating a bagel with slightly undercooked scrambled eggs and Mexican cheese, and it hit me, and I was like, holy shit. Why do vampires not just manufacture artificial blood? I know what you're thinking. Artifice! Listen, I know that blood is incredibly difficult to create in a laboratory setting. It's not the same as an ear, but listen. Vamps got time, okay? They do not need to eat. They do not need to sleep. We know that 99.99% of them are not actually getting laid.
Hello?
All these statistics that say vamps are having constant sex, it's a statistical error, okay? That is Emmett and that is Rosalie. And it is all just Emmett eating Rosalie out and literally nothing else. I don't think that a vampire has had penetrative sex since 1000 AD when Arrow met Carlisle. I really think that vamps have enough time on their hands to just hunker down in the laboratory and figure out a way to artificially manufacture blood. They could have it be like weed where there's different strains, and there could be very elite strains that are created by the Volturi themselves, where it would be oh, this is Arrow's hint of peach vintage, and people would taste it and be like, oh, I'm detecting an undernote of cardamom. And it could be this whole beautiful capitalistic venture. Listen, the Volturi are on a bi-weekly basis just taking 40 tourists into their dungeon. That's 40 missing persons bi-weekly, all heading to the same tour group. Side note, I really want to know how the Volturi are dealing with COVID and COVID restrictions, and maybe fewer tourists are wanting to go down into that small confined space to risk catching COVID, and so they're legitimately having trouble getting enough people to feed them, and probably Caius is getting extremely hangry. I think that this would solve so many problems. You no longer have to be involved with the criminal world. You can be a good, wholesome, respectable patron of the arts, and you create your own vintage blood. You would no longer need to get fake death certificates and fake passports and talk to Jay Jenks and make you look like you're human trafficking your own daughter with this fucking wolf. All you'd have to do is stick it in the microwave, and you'd have a delicious Capri Sun pouch of Arrow Barrow's 1922 hint of cardamom vintage blood. They could throw parties with this. Obviously, what the Volturi would have to do is just start selling this shit and like market it really heavily and like really like wink wink nudge nudging, being like, I really recommend that you guys start trying doing this instead of hunting, and then eventually just simply make it law that vampires are no longer allowed to hunt humans. And so you're like basically like forcing them by law to purchase your product, and your wealth is just ballooning, and you can spend that on more research on the blood and better blood for other vampires. Once this has been going on for long enough, they can choose to reveal themselves peacefully to humans and present a nice binder full of all of their contributions to the progress of humanity, maybe a PowerPoint with that too. And they conclude the binder and the PowerPoint with the recipe and instructions for manufacturing blood, permanently ending humanity's need for blood donations. Vampires reveal themselves by saving humans access to blood, and they could actually like have a life again. Sulpicia and Athenadora could actually like leave the tower and just like chill and get like a brunch together and drink like mimosa flavored blood. Carlisle could actually lighten the fuck up and actually enjoy his delicious lab grown blood, and you just know that the red of his eyes would go gorgeously with that platinum hair. I mean, you know that Garrett and like Dimitri would be Instagram thoughts and like be posting selfies at like 2 a.m. Actual historians would be like shitting and pissing their pants and like clamoring to get interviews from the vamps who actually lived through history. It would change the entire field. And I mean, the Volturi are patrons of the arts. I mean, they have to appreciate this in some way, shape, or form. People would just coexist with vampires peacefully, and vampires, you know, they're gonna miss the hunt a little bit. They're gonna miss like sprinting around or whatever, which is why I propose that we create a vampire Olympics in which all the vampires from around the world can compete. And there could be like vampire rock stars and like supernatural vampire nurses who just like never get tired and never have to like take a shit or eat or drink or leave work until they get thirsty. So that's like 2 weeks straight of work employers would be getting. I mean, they'd be the dream employee, and they probably wouldn't need much compensation because they all have built up so much wealth over the years. Anyway, Era Volturi, pay me royalties.